Blighty Boxing in association with Frank Warren and Queensbury Promotions. We're here at the slightly eerie and slightly spooky Peacock Gym with Martin Bowers, the Governor, and Ray Ball, his trusty assistant. Martin hates me for saying that. And we also need to say to Martin not to shift around like he normally does to stay in frame. Martin, how much of a relief was it when you were able to phone up the lads and get the doors open once more?
Well, I think anyone in our position who was waiting to get the boys out or get back into the gym and get back into the feel of it would be greatly relieved, and as we was.
I suppose the relief really when you made those calls to the boys, they must have been like, whoa, thank God for that.
Well, to be fair, we actually spoke about it about 2 weeks prior, so they all knew the date that we was coming back in the gym, and they was all ready and prepared, but you know, they still had to wait. So we probably spoke about it 2 weeks prior to coming back in the gym, and then probably just under a week before we come back in the gym, we started monitoring everyone's temperature and making sure that they was okay and healthy. So they was taking their temperature in the morning and taking their temperature overnight and then sending it to us. And then we went from there. And as you know, we've got 6 boys in. 4 of the 6 are going to be fighting. 2 of the boys ain't got dates, but we've done it in like pairs so that they've got people to work with, so we can do most of the work. And the beginning of the sparring, we haven't started yet, but we're going to do the sparring in-house just to get the timing and a bit of movement and that back.
We'll come back to that in a little bit more detail in a second. Now, Ray, you've probably been in this boxing business for 100 years non-stop. You know, I mean, you probably remember Spanish flu when that came about. But this is probably the first time you've actually had a prolonged, enforced break in your boxing journey, isn't it?
Yep. It has been, yeah.
And how hard has that been for you?
It has been hard because I do a little bit of work with the amateurs and all, not just with the pros. And you know, you miss them. You know, you miss the kids, you miss the guys here. You know, and you know, you're worried, like, are they doing the work what you asked them to do, and that, because you're not with them and that, and you're worried about their weight ballooning up and things like that, and you know, it was just a you know, an unfortunate thing, you know, because the guys had dates and they were ready to go, and now it's still, things are up in the air, aren't they, at the moment?
Being such a busy bloke as you are, I mean, I know you used to do, I don't know if you still do, you used to do a lot of amateur stuff in the evening over at Fisher, wasn't it? Have you found sort of tending the roses, or have you taken up gardening, or what? How's it worked?
I've got a very fit dog.
I think a lot of dogs are knackered at the moment, aren't
they? Yeah. That's all I've been doing, is walking the dog. That's all.
Did you find yourself getting under anyone's feet?
No, not really, because I was going back, doing a bit of work in my yard, like, you know, with the lorries and stuff like that, you know, tidying things up, and that's mainly what I've been doing, really. You know, I've done nothing boxing wise. You know, I was like, really, boxing's my drug, and I was like on clucking for it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day,
I think it's like, say, people who are so into boxing, because boxing, I think there's kind of no half measures, is there? You're either completely into it or you're not. I mean, how to have that taken away from you, it must have just been, well, going cold turkey, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it is, you know what I mean? Because, you know, you come and you think, oh, I've got all this spare time on my hands, and you know, you can only do so many things, can't you? You know, and then you know, you want what you enjoy, and you couldn't do it. You know what I mean?
So as far as you're concerned, there was no sort of upside to this at all?
No, not really. No. It's probably, you know, it's like the boys who worked hard, you know, for that date, and then it was cancelled, then they got another date. Like, you know, it was hard for them, but in a little way, it gave them a little bit of time to have a bit of rest, because they do work hard in here, and, you know, and let their bodies, you know, heal a bit.
That's actually an interesting point, Martin, because I have seen it mentioned, but say like football, for instance, a lot of coaches and experts are saying this enforced break is probably the best thing that can happen to a footballer, because they're just constantly on that relentless treadmill, game, playing with injuries. They're never 100% fit, say, after October, and they're saying this pulling the plug has actually allowed them to just do nothing, which is probably what they need. Can you relate to that at all in boxing in any way?
Yeah, I guess you can. I mean, like I said, this has been an enforced break, and the boys have all been, ticking over and just training gently, for want of a better word, which is not a bad thing. So, we was pleased with that.
Did you start getting into any of this Zoom stuff with the boys, in terms of video links and giving them instructions via video?
No, we've got a little WhatsApp group. We have a chat, and the boys, luckily enough, they're all professionals. They all want to do this game. It's not like we ain't got their arm up their back saying, "Oh, you got to go for a run" or whatever. They just get up and do it. So we're in that respect, we're really lucky.
Now, Ray, Martin mentioned before how you were, in the 2 weeks before you returned to training, you were kind of monitoring temperatures and things like that. What protocols did you have in place when first day back, if you like? I understand, but you tested all the boxers and the coaches.
They was all tested, all the coaches were tested, and we're still going through the temperature thing, everybody has to take the temperature twice a day and send them in, and if anything's out of the ordinary, then they can't train any of the guys. But at the moment, everything's going well, touch wood.
Did you self-administer the tests? Did one of one of the coaches go around doing it, or did you have somebody come in and do it?
We had someone come in and do it, yeah.
And how difficult, Martin, was it to source the tests? Most of us don't really know how this sort of thing works.
To be fair, there wasn't that hard to source. We got them off the internet, like probably everybody else has, and we done it that route.
And I won't name his name because we haven't asked him permission. He had one person found he had antibodies and has obviously had it without even knowing it.
Yeah. No, he was very happy. He was very happy, so that was good.
Right, let's move on a little bit to what we know is coming up. What do you know at this stage in terms of your little squad getting back into action?
All I know is that, or we've been told, is after the 25th, when the football's finished, we'll be looking for dates. So that's what we're preparing for. We haven't been told specific dates yet, but we know they've all got fights coming up.
And that would be sort of Louis, Denzel, I'm not sure, Chris, Daniel.
Dorian and Sean ain't got dates, but obviously, as I said, Dorian and Sean have come in. Dorian's coming to help Daniel, so that's a pair, and Sean's coming to help Denzel, so that's a pair. Chris and Louis are a pair, and that's how we're working it.
There's a certain logic to that, Martin, I have to say. I wanted to just briefly take you back. I'm not going to go through all the most recent fights, but there was one night just before lockdown which I think would have tickled you pink. That was Sean Phillips winning the Southern Area title against Davis Pagan, where a bull in a china shop doesn't quite cover it, does it?
No, I think he gave a great account of himself, and we know that he's got them sort of performances in him. Like all the boys, he's had a bit of a journey, but he's coming through, and you're going to begin to see what we see of Sean all the time, and hopefully there's a lot more to his journey.
Ray, did you know he was going to come off his stool and explode into action like that? Was it mentioned before in the dressing room?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was mentioned. Yeah,
Did you recommend it? Were you up for that?
Yeah, I did say. To be fair, I knew Davis because I had done a little bit of work with him at the St Pancras Boxing Club when he was an amateur. So I knew he was a little bit slow coming forward. So I thought if he put it on him a bit, it might work. And it worked. It worked.
Don't see that much these days, do you? People like going for that sort of 10-second kill.
Not normally in the southern area, because they are really, I'm not knocking any over the titles or anything, but southern areas are normally 50-50 trade fights, and to be fair, we thought that's what it was, but that's what we spoke about beforehand, and Sean had it in his head, even though he was like, it was just a good night. Listen, take nothing away from the other boy. A good fighter, but that was Sean's night.
Knowing you two like I do, I kind of think that those sort of titles with someone like Sean means as much to you as WBC silver titles.
Yeah, every bit. Every fight does, and especially titles. When the boys get to title level, it's a game changer for them. So, and it's a bit of history, and it's something that, like we say to the boys about the titles, and probably all coaches do, you never spend them. Do you know what I mean? You've got that for life. So when that happens, we're so proud, and we're so pleased that they've got something. And the southern area means to us and all the people in London or whatever, and in our area, it means a lot because there's so much history to it, and there's so many people have won them titles over the years and gone on to better things. So the southern area is just it's everything.
Chris Bourke must be very close to titles now, isn't he?
Well, that's what we're hoping to get Chris a title fight when the new season starts, for want of a better word. I know it ain't a new season, but when the season opens up, that's what Chris is looking for, a title, and rightly so.
You can answer this question. I put it to him earlier on. Is he, pound for pound, the biggest puncher at the Peacock?
No comment.
Come on.
No comment.
All right, we'll leave that one there. Ray, I want to ask you about our next subject, who I think is another one that's got to be on the brink of a title and is desperately wanting a test, and that's Denzel Bentley. Is it the case, but he now needs to be almost have a bit of fear in his heart for his next fight? Because I think a lot of the fights he's had, no fault of his own, he's probably known he's going to win them.
Well, I think that not the last fight, but the fight before that. Right, he's second.
That was a 10-1 guy, wasn't it?
And they were the type of guys he wanted to box, but them type of fights are hard to get because guys, they look at him. I'm not building him up or anything, but people, when they see 11-0 fighter, so many knockouts, they shy away from it. And if you're trying to build your own career, you don't want to be getting in with someone like that, so you keep away. And all credit to that kid who got in the ring with him. He was 10-1, and he come to have a go. Like, you could see it, the way he was talking, the way he conducted himself. So that was a good win for Denzel. It would have been nice to have another one like that, but like I said, you can only you put your feelers out for these guys, and
I think people are saying, but these fights might have to happen now because it's not going to be so sport for choice. People can't protect their records so much. So hopefully, in the wake of this enforced absence, a lot of these fighters might take fights against the likes of Denzel.
Well, I think they will, because I think, my personal opinion, I think the small promoters will suffer a little bit because the way that it's set up for their fighters to on the ticket sales of things, and it's going to be hard for them, and if you're a contract fighter with a big promoter, you've got half a chance to box, but so these guys who do box on the small halls, they might say, well, I can get a few quid, I can box someone like Denzel, and you probably in the public get the good fights then at the end of the day, and we know, then we can see if he is the real deal,
You're the man to ask this question. I've put it to Martin before, but you know Denzel better than anyone, having worked with him through the amateurs as well. A young Nigel Benn reminds me, but you look at your face, says you don't agree with that.
Well, he is an aggressive fighter, and he can whack a bit. His record says that, right? But at the end of the day, he can box. You get guys come down here and spar with him, and I'm not disrespecting the guys who come, but sometimes they can't lay a glove on him. He's got great movement, and he has been televised, by BT, but they've not. I don't think they've seen the best of him. I think that when he gets into a fight where someone's coming at him and then he's got to start using his boxing brain, you'll see what he's really about. He ain't just a come forward, crash bang wallop guy. No, he's you're going to see the thing. And what you got to remember with Denzel, he was in this gym for 2 years, right, training before he even had a fight, right, and he was sparring with the likes of Ahmed Patterson, Ted Cheeseman, and John Ryder, and he was, you can't get Alan Higgins. You can't get better than that. You can't buy that. And he learnt from them. And that's why he has come on a bit. His amateur record weren't too good, but once he was with that kind of group of people, he could see that's what I want to be.
I know we've lost a few months, but could it be that Denzel could be the sort of breakout star of 2020, or do you think maybe we'll wait till next year now?
I call him the 21st century Charlie Burley, because he can't get the fights he wants. he can't get the fights he wants. You know, he was overlooked for the southern area. He was overlooked for the English. You know, and it's what I'm going back before. You know, people look at that and they think, oh, he can bang a bit. And boxers know boxers. You know, and the word goes about he can box, this kid. You know, he's not just a crash bang wallop, but Merchant, what I said before. You know, they haven't. People ain't seen that. He's got an engine. He's got a lovely style. When he gets into his, you can't lay a glove on him. You know, and you know, he's, like I said, we haven't seen the best of him yet, but we need to know, we need them fights, them big fights for him to see if he is the real deal. You know, I can sit here and rattle my mouth off and say, yeah, he's this, he's that, he's this. But, you know, he's fought one guy who was, I think two guys on that record who were good fighters. That was Gomez, right, and Ball, right, and he done a number. No disrespect to Ball, but he done a number on him.
He also fought the fellow who beat him in the amateurs as well, didn't he? So I suppose you can't really overlook that.
No, I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But amateur boxing is a funny old game. You know, I've been in the amateurs for 20 years, right, and I've had some top amateur fighters, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet. You know, I shouldn't say I've worked with some top amateur fighters, and you know, you can be in a competition and the best have to fight the best if you want to progress, right? And sometimes if you're in certain areas of the country, you don't get the nod, you know, and you come away scratching your head and think, oh, I thought, you know, I thought we'd done the business there, you know. And I've only ever seen that once in professional boxing since I've been like working in professional boxing, and I've got to say it, he won't like it if I say it, and that was against Alan Higgins. That gutted me.
Kind of finished Alan as well, didn't it? In many respects.
But that's what I say, you know. So you do with amateur boxing, the best have to fight the best if you want to be the best. But with professional boxing, you can go different ways, you know. But I think this lockdown, after this lockdown, you're going to see some good fights. I think you can get these boys fighting now.
And we look forward to it. Martin, Ray, thank you very much, gents.